Hello and welcome everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. My name is Ann Williams. I'm the state representative for the 11th District, chair of the Energy and Environment Committee in the House, and House sponsor of the Clean Energy Jobs Act. I'm joined here today by my colleagues, State Senator Sarah Feigenholtz and Representative Yoni Pizer. We are so glad you're here today for this exciting discussion of one of our favorite topics, which is CEJA, and how it can help us in the recovery from COVID-19. Along with the Clean Jobs Coalition, the three of us have been working with advocates from throughout the environmental community to push for CEJA and energize support for CEJA around the state. We were full steam ahead in March when the pandemic came our way and everything kind of came to a grinding halt. But the pandemic itself has underscored two important concepts. First, the health of the planet is absolutely intertwined with the health of its population. The development and spread of infectious disease has been linked time and time again to record precipitation, deforestation, flooding, and other hallmarks of climate change. Second, if the pandemic has taught us anything, it's taught us that the failure to listen to science can be catastrophic. Scientists have warned us for decades about a global pandemic coming along, which would change life as we know it. And sure enough, here we are. Likewise, everyone on this call is well aware about the scientific warnings for decades about the dangers and devastation of climate change. And we need to take action now before it's too late. Of course, we're dealing with an absence of action on the federal level. So it's really come to the states to take action. And we are moving forward here in Illinois. The working groups on clean energy that had been started in March are restarted, and these are facilitated by Governor Pritzker and his environmental team. So it's our hope that CEJA will be the foundation for these discussions and that any clean energy package will really utilize the principles that we're going to talk about today. We're hoping that in the fall veto session, which takes place in November, we will pass a comprehensive bill that looks a lot like what we're going to be talking about today. Our target is November, but we need your help in the meantime to galvanize support and energy around this bill. So I'm real excited to be here today. Our panel is outstanding, and I think you will be too. So in terms of our agenda, we'll give some opening remarks, and then we'll turn it over to our panelists. We'll start off with Sarah Moskowitz from the Citizens Utility Board. We'll then turn it over to Gavin Taves of the Illinois Environmental Council. And finally, we'll wrap up with Naomi Davis, who is with Black and Green. From there, we'll go to a Q&A period, and that will be facilitated by Yoni Pizer, who will go through kind of the rules of the road there. And then we'll just do some closing remarks, and we should wrap up right around 1 o'clock. So again, thank you so much for being here today. We're really glad you are, and I'll turn it over to Representative Pizer.
Thank you so much, Representative Williams. I just have to say it's been an honor and a privilege to be working with you in the House as you spearhead this incredibly important piece of legislation. And what can I say about my favorite Senator Feigenholtz? It's been an honor and a privilege to work with you, to follow you in the House, and we're all in awe of your decades fighting for the environment and working for clean energy. So it's an honor and a privilege, and I'm excited to hear from our esteemed panelists as well. Before we dive in, just a few housekeeping items. We would like the conversation to be respectful, so we ask that participants keep that in mind and refrain from inappropriate messaging in the chat box and or using profanity. Also, this webinar is being recorded and there may be press on the call, so if you would prefer to remain anonymous, please take this opportunity to change your screen name. As Representative Williams mentioned, we will be having a Q&A session after our panelists' presentations. So please enter your questions using the question chat option in your control panel. We hope to get to as many questions as possible, but if we're unable to answer yours, please shoot anyone on this call an email and we will definitely get back to you. Okay, as Representative Williams just mentioned, we as legislators have been meeting in working groups and have come up with alternate ways to get things done during the current health crisis to pass the Clean Energy Jobs Act, known as CEJA. While many of those on this call are intimately familiar with the goals of CEJA, it's important to reiterate its objectives for those trying to get involved or want to become more knowledgeable about this critical piece of legislation. CEJA was developed through a very intentional bottom-up process developed over many months from over 100 listen, lead, share events throughout all of Illinois. As we all know, COVID-19 is disproportionately impacting Black, Brown, and underserved communities. With CEJA, Illinois will create long-term answers to the public health and economic challenges posed by the novel coronavirus. Here are the four main pillars for what the future of clean energy will look like in Illinois. First, creating jobs and economic opportunity with equity and social justice at the heart of our clean energy future. Two, getting to 100% renewable energy by 2050. Three, building a carbon-free power sector by 2030 to power over 4 million Illinois homes, lower utility bills, and push back against harmful Trump administration attacks on clean energy. And finally, four, reducing pollution by electrifying the transportation sector, currently the largest source of carbon emissions. CEJA would achieve the equivalent of eliminating 1 million gas and diesel-powered vehicles from Illinois roads. So that's CEJA in brief. Without further ado, I would like to pass it on to my favorite senator, dear friend, long-term advocate for clean energy, and a fierce legislator, Senator Sarah Feigenholtz. Take it away, Senator.
Wow, Yoni, thank you. Thank you. These are two of the coolest representatives in the Illinois House. And I have to say that Representative Williams has been working on CEJA for maybe over 2 years now. And I am always, when I talk to my constituents, whether it be on either side of the Senate district, telling them when they ask me, what is the most important thing that you are working on in Springfield? I defer to my, to Ann Williams and talk about CEJA because of the impact and that this is having on our lives. But this is a big lift, and we're going to need a lot of help from our constituents and all hands on deck. This is not going to be an easy bill to pass because there are a lot of conflicting interests here. And so when you get emails to reach out to legislators or to go meet with them or to come down to Springfield if we're back down there, please, 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 get in the game with us and help us fight, because we can't wait any longer. As Yoni and Ann talked about the pandemic and how we sort of, it was in someone's long game in their crystal ball, and who would have ever dreamt that immediately we would be experiencing this. And it's the convergence of the environment and health, the issues around biodiversity disturbances, habitat loss, and the risk that we are experiencing of animal to human disease transmission. And through this crisis, we have seen this hit our Black and Brown communities the hardest, and then in turn witness the inequities that were so amplified because of it. And so we have a great deal of lessons we are learning. And I truly believe that CEJA is going to bring us, once passed in law, that it's going to bring us the long-term answers to public health and economic challenges that this virus has made so evident to all of us. We have to guard against this harmful federal government. They have attacked the environment. They have attacked clean energy. Anything green is being rejected by Washington. It's a terrible time, and it's time for us to build careers around clean energy and build community wealth and new opportunities, not for every community, not just some. So let's work together and make this happen for the health and the well-being of the planet, for our children and our grandchildren. We have to remember that our job is to create a more equitable place to live by addressing the economic and environmental inequalities that the COVID-19 has made so apparent to us. So again, I too look very forward to hearing our special guests and learning more from them. And am grateful to have been invited to be a panelist and proud to be with my colleagues who are the greatest guys and gals around.
Thank you so much, Senator, and thank you, Representative Pizer. Well said. You guys hit the nail on the head in terms of the issues we're going to be talking about today, so thanks. With that, we'll turn it over to our first panelist. That is Sarah Moskowitz. Sarah is the Deputy Director at the Citizens Utility Board, or CUB as we affectionately know it. And since its founding in 1984, CUB has served as the state's premier utility watchdog group. And Sarah just celebrated her 20th anniversary working there. Wow. Congratulations on that. And Sarah, please take it away.
Thank you, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right, everybody can see my screen, I hope. All right. So thank you, Senator Feigenholtz, Representative Williams, Representative Pizer, for hosting this important conversation today. And thanks to everybody for tuning in. My name is Sarah, again. I work at the Citizens Utility Board, or CUB. CUB is an Illinois utility ratepayer advocacy group. It was created in the early 80s to represent the interests of utility consumers across the state. So it goes without saying, but I will go ahead and say it, that these are unprecedented times we're living in. I wanted to start my remarks with a tiny piece of good news. Last month, the state approved a variety of consumer protection and assistance measures to help people who are having trouble paying their utility bills as a result of the pandemic. So if you or somebody you know is having trouble with your bills right now, there's help out there, and you can learn more about that at citizensutilityboard.org or by calling your utility. But bigger picture, we're still in a lot of trouble, everybody. The current crisis hasn't reduced at all the urgency of passing CEJA. On the contrary, it has highlighted many of the disparities that CEJA attempts to address. In my view, doing nothing is not an option right now. Unless we act now, we will lose the momentum we gained with the Future Energy Jobs Act that passed at the end of 2016. Funding for Illinois renewables is going to run out. Of course, the funding for the community solar program has already been accounted for, and some estimates I've seen predict that the funding for rooftop solar, the state funding, will run out sometime this fall. Also, if we do nothing, the Northern Illinois electric customers like you and I will pay hundreds of millions of dollars more per year to prop up uneconomic fossil fuel generation. And all of that is not even touching on the missed opportunities to combat the climate crisis while creating jobs that CEJA affords us. So yeah, in all my 20 years of working in this space, I've never seen energy legislation more focused on equity, inclusion, and fairness like CEJA. So as Representative Pizer mentioned, CEJA is based on 4 policy pillars. First, investing in jobs and economic development across Illinois, rendering the state's electric sector carbon-free by the year 2030, achieving 100% renewable electricity by 2050, and doing all of this while electrifying the transportation sector. So, of course, I've got to elaborate on each of these pillars just a little bit. I was tasked to explain CEJA in 10 minutes. That is impossible. So I hope you guys are all okay with this. We are extending this webinar by 2 hours, and you're all locked in, so I can actually read the bill to you. No, just kidding. I will do my best to summarize it, but leave a lot of time for Q&A because I am not going to be able to do it justice. So under Pillar One, we're talking about creating a network of workforce development hubs that provide direct support for members of economically disadvantaged and environmental justice communities, communities of color, and former fossil fuel workers who are training for clean energy jobs. CEJA will also create a contractor incubator program to help disadvantaged clean energy contractors and entrepreneurs get access to capital and support. Under Pillar Two, when we're talking about achieving a carbon-free electric sector by 2030, we're talking about having the Illinois EPA limit and eventually eliminate greenhouse gas emissions from Illinois power plants. We're talking about expanding energy efficiency, all those great programs that are designed to help us reduce energy use and save money in our homes and businesses. If any of you have received an email from CUB or seen one of us speak in your community, we spent a lot of time trying to connect people to these great programs. CEJA will expand them. And very importantly, from a consumer advocacy perspective, through CEJA, we aim to change the way we procure peak electricity in our state, thereby saving ComEd customers hundreds of millions of dollars each year. Pillar Three. It's not too hard to wrap your head around this one, right? 100% renewable energy by 2050. I'm talking about quadrupling the state's current renewable goals. Do you like solar power? Do you want to ensure that it continues to grow in Illinois? Well, we've got to pass CEJA. Otherwise, we're on track to run out of rooftop solar funding this fall, like I mentioned. CEJA would, meanwhile, quintuple, that's how you say it, right? ×5 funding for Illinois Solar for All, the program that brings solar benefits to low-income and environmental justice communities. And CEJA does all of this while bringing in former coal communities to the conversation to help ensure that they don't get left behind in all of this. So Pillar 4 is particularly exciting in that with CEJA, we're looking at how to ramp up the electrification of transportation equitably and in a way that benefits our overall electric system. This isn't just about electric cars for individuals who may already own a car or afford a car or be able to even afford an EV. CEJA's looking at things like public transit, car sharing, and helping to connect folks who live in transit deserts via electric shuttles to mass transit. CEJA also requires the ICC, or Illinois Commerce Commission, to initiate a process to ensure that adding all these electric vehicles to the power grid doesn't mess with the grid's reliability or raise our costs. So bottom line, what does all of this mean? CEJA is the whole package. It's the result, as mentioned, of an inclusive process, conversations involving representatives from labor, environmental groups, consumer groups, environmental justice communities, low-income groups, to ensure that this energy package contains not just provisions upping renewables and energy efficiency and electric cars, but that it does these things equitably and in a way, importantly for me, that protects utility customers. And as I hope is clear to everybody, passing CEJA is especially urgent now, as it helps to keep costs down, put people back to work, and tackle climate change and the air pollution that have heightened people's susceptibilities to the current health crisis. So to finish, I urge you to visit IllinoisCleanJobs.org. You can learn a whole lot more about the bill, send a message to your legislators and to the governor. And of course, this wouldn't be a CUB presentation if I didn't encourage you also to learn more about the existing solar efficiency programs, how to decode your bills at citizensutilityboard.org. Thanks so much.
Great, thank you, Sarah. And would it be possible for you to share that presentation with us so we could distribute it to the people on the call later?
Of
just
course.
because it provides such a great framework for CEJA in a very, capsulizes it. So thank you so much. Yeah, because it's like 18 pages, so there was no time to read it.
Yeah, I know. Thank you so much. All right, I will do.
Thank you. So next up, we have Gavin Taves of the Illinois Environmental Council. He serves as Energy Policy Director at the IEC. Within his role, Gavin spearheads energy policy development and analysis, working with the Illinois Clean Jobs Coalition and other key stakeholders to advance progressive environmental legislation across the state. So Gavin, when you're ready, we'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Representative Williams. I appreciate that wonderful introduction, and thank you to my colleague Sarah for a great primer on the policy of CEJA that really sets me up to present a little bit more on the current status of the bill and the political process by which it was designed and how we're moving forward. So like Representative Williams just said, my name is Gavin Taves. I am the Energy Policy Director at the Illinois Environmental Council. A little bit about IEC before I dive in. The IEC serves as kind of the eyes, ears, and voice of the environmental community, and we've been around since 1975. So the IEC has 100 affiliate organizations, and we kind of serve as the hub of the environmental community, helping to pass legislation in Springfield, working very closely with both the representatives and the senator who are on this call. So it's great to see them in this capacity. So for Illinois, there are many paths for a clean energy future, but the coalition that we are all part of, Sarah and I and many other members of the environmental community, is called the Illinois Clean Jobs Coalition. And this coalition has been around for several years now, passing and advocating for these big, bold bills that are promoting a clean energy future and an inclusive and equitable energy future for all Illinois residents. So in 2016, the Illinois General Assembly passed the Future Energy Jobs Act, which generates around 12 to 15 billion in new private investments across Illinois for renewable energy, and includes a whole host of equitable energy development programs. And this was a huge, huge deal for Illinois and for many disenfranchised and Black and Brown communities across the state. But you know, that had all of these wonderful programs and energy savings and solar for all, like Sarah was describing. But we realized there's a lot more work to do. We have these great job training programs, and we're putting people into the workforce who previously would not have had exposure or access to the clean energy economy. And that's great. And we've been seeing growth. But with the economic downturn, we've seen that the clean energy economy has been specifically hard hit. We need more action to ensure that the clean energy future that Illinois deserves takes place. And we need to make sure that we're, casting a wide net and making sure that everybody who wants to be involved and who should be involved and who deserves to be involved in that economic revitalization gets that chance. So the Clean Energy Jobs Act will address a lot of issues that CEJA did not address, and it moves us forward in this really progressive and aggressive way to help meet our clean energy goals and really tackle the environmental crisis of climate change, but then also the local environmental crises of air pollution and other such topics. So CEJA itself specifically, it helps fight a lot of these federal regulations, like Senator Feigenholtz was describing. There are major prop-ups that are sponsored by federal agencies for dirty fuel that we want to make sure doesn't take place in Illinois. Propping up dirty fuel that is uneconomic isn't the best idea for Illinois residents. And these coal plants across the state are closing. They're closing oftentimes without plans for the future for their workers. And we need a plan to make sure that those workers are given pathways and provided opportunities to re-engage in the clean energy economy. And without a new bill, funding streams for some of these renewable energy development programs are going to run out. And we need to have a legislative fix to make sure that doesn't happen, and CEJA provides that. Further, and most importantly, and something that Sarah really hit on here that I think is very important to just state, is that July of 2019 was the hottest month in history. for Illinois, and every single county declared an agricultural crisis. This is a huge deal. Climate change is happening now. It's intense, and we need to address it, and CEJA is the option. So we have the Clean Energy Jobs Act. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on the policy because Sarah did a really wonderful job of doing that. But in 2018, the Illinois Clean Jobs Coalition, which is a coalition of business leaders and environmental groups and advocates like people on this call, launched this campaign to go to every Senate district across the state to find out what these folks wanted for new clean energy futures. What was their vision for an Illinois that had renewable energy? What was the priority? And this was really the foundation for all of the policies that were developed. It's a community and grassroots led organization, and the policy itself was developed by those communities for those communities, which is a really important part of our whole platform. So the bill itself was introduced in February 2019. And again, I'm not going to go into details here, but the 4 pillars are here: the quality jobs and investments in communities, 100% renewable by 2050, a carbon-free electric sector by 2030, and then increasing electric vehicle access. And right now we have 31 Senate and 55 House co-sponsors, really great numbers. And that's because the top line messaging is so attractive for so many people. CEJA is good for consumers. We want to lower electric rates for folks, making sure that ratepayers are protected from these harmful federal policies, making sure that we're promoting the growth of jobs in communities across the state with an equitable distribution of opportunity. And Sarah really laid out some wonderful programs that CEJA will create to help achieve that goal. And finally, for public health and the environment, CEJA in this moment specifically, where we have a respiratory crisis, a pandemic that specifically is attacking the lungs, we need to have policy put in place to help protect the quality of our air in a moment when the federal government is trying to tear down standards like NEPA. People get this messaging and they want to support it. So where are we now? The Clean Energy Jobs Act did not pass in the spring, like the representatives and senator said before. We know that there was critical stimulus and public health measures that were prioritized, so the window has been pushed to the fall. But what we're seeing is this incredible support for this bill across the state. There's this great momentum that's really building and has been building for a long time. And you can just look at the numbers. So recent polling suggests that there's cross-party plurality support for the Clean Energy Jobs Act specifically. 98% of Democrats, 84% of independents, and 58% of Republicans. And these numbers for an environmental bill are really unprecedented and very exciting for the coalition and for Illinois. We show multi-region support. Again, pluralities of support all across Illinois. In Chicago, 93%, and you can read the numbers here, but downstate, 76%. Folks are aware of the issues, they know what they want, and CEJA is the answer for them. And most importantly, there is this urgency that people are really understanding at this moment. 74% of people say that they want CEJA passed immediately. And that's a really important thing for the Illinois Clean Jobs Coalition to take note of. So what are our next steps? Right now, like Representative Williams and Representative Pizer were describing, there are these energy working groups to help determine what the future for energy policy will look like in Illinois. And there are a variety of meetings going on, in looking at the power sector, looking at jobs and equity, transportation, building decarbonization, and lots of other really important and prescient topics. And within the Illinois Clean Jobs Coalition, we're really going to be pushing for grassroots advocacy this summer. Making sure that people are reaching out to their legislators and building a coalition around CEJA, so that in the fall we have that full momentum to pass the bill. In the fall, more outreach is really important, and then finally, passing that bill in the veto session. That's the most important thing that we need to do. So how can you help? Everybody here is on this call. I'm assuming that folks are interested in environmental policy and that CEJA is at least something that you're thinking about. So what can you do? Following the Illinois Clean Jobs Coalition on Twitter, following the Illinois Environmental Council, and following CUB on all social media platforms is really important. looking for information on IllinoisCleanJobs.org. It has a plethora and a great wealth of resources, fact sheets on every part of the bill. You can read the bill itself there. It's a really great resource. And then sharing those updates and that news, and then sharing your personal narrative about why environmental policy and why environmental justice is important to you. That really helps convince people more than anything else. Signing those petitions, organizing events, and then finally reaching out to your representatives and your senators. Go to your district locator, find out who represents you, reach out to them and tell them why CEJA is so important. And then finally, call Governor Pritzker and tell the governor's office that it is time for Illinois to pass a big, bold, progressive climate change bill right now. This focuses on equity. We're talking about equitable economic opportunities for folks across the state and helping us get to a renewable energy future that everybody deserves. So with that, I will turn it back over to Representative Williams to introduce our next speaker.
Great. Thank you so much, Gavin, for that great presentation. And I did want to just remind everybody to check out the Clean Jobs website. It does have a lot of great information on it, including the members of the Clean Jobs Coalition, ways to get involved, more fact sheets than you would ever be able to read in a lifetime, but excellent materials. I will just give you a little sneak peek. Since Gavin mentioned the bill being introduced in 2019, there is another version coming of CEJA, and it contains some provisions that are relevant to the latest crisis and some of the updates that we need to see moving forward. So we can expect that to be unveiled in the next couple weeks or so. So we'll be sure to keep you all apprised as that happens. So keeping the same basic components, but updating it to address the COVID crisis and other current issues. With that, we'll wrap up our panel today with Naomi Davis, who is the founder of Illinois Blacks in Green. Blacks in Green serves as a bridge and catalyst among communities and their stakeholders in the design and development of green, self-sustaining, mixed income, walkable villages and communities owned and populated by African Americans. Naomi is the founder and president of Blacks in Green. She's an urban theorist, attorney, activist, and proud granddaughter of Mississippi sharecroppers. Naomi served on Governor Pritzker's transition team, Powering Illinois' Future, on Mayor Manuel's transition team for energy, environment, and public space, and was selected as a sustainability thought leader at Groupon's first annual Chicago Ideas Week. She is a respected community advocate for equitable development in the communities surrounding the Obama Presidential Center and has lived and worked in West Woodlawn since 2010. When you're ready, Naomi, please take it away.
Hi, greetings. Thank you so much, Representative Williams. You are going to go down in history as one of the great allies of the environment and the environmental justice community. And of course, Representative Feigenholtz, Senator Feigenholtz. I knew you back when. I'm just delighted to be here with all of you. Want to talk with you about the equitable components of CEJA and why organizations like Blacks in Green are so strongly supporting CEJA right now. I don't have my usual dog and pony show because I really want to just get down with you about why the equity components of CEJA have proven to be so compelling. Let me show you a few slides and I'm going to walk you through some of the just highlighted components of CEJA. Sarah did an excellent job of giving you an overview of some of the benefits. And so I'm going to show you what, let's see. Are you seeing my screen?
Yep, it looks like we can see it. There is a block, something in the way though, your webcam. There you go.
Oh, okay. So you are seeing my screen?
Yep, it looks good now.
Okay, beautiful. So what we're trying to underscore with you is that there was a fight at the table and there was a fight between colleagues, well-intended, who wanted to stand for equity at the center of the Clean Energy Jobs Act legislation in ways that were improved beyond what we did with the Future Energy Jobs Act. And so in those conversations, we had to really dig down deep. And these were in the days back before it was dinner table discussion like it is now about what is equity actually? Who's making the decisions? So being at the table and understanding the power dynamics of old needed to be dismantled was something that members of the Clean Jobs Coalition really had to open-heartedly embrace. And in the process, had to look at and the advocacy of Blacks in Green and many others in the African-American community who have been unsatisfied by the metrics of improvement and along economic lines, really pushed to look and see who's getting paid, the supply chains, and really what it means to level the playing field. CEJA has worked in a very, very important way to advance the amount of money being invested for environmental justice communities and prioritizing those payments. These were measures that we fought for at the table years ago that are coming into fruition in some very significant ways now. What we are agreed on and what we're focused on is that there must be metrics and that these measures must be tracked over time. And so what we are agreed on and working forward in the CEJA legislation are the provisions as well as the regulatory enforcement of what we mean when we say that hires are insured. And we now know, of course, that we are dealing with intentional damage with special measures. I'm putting up a picture of the green living room because this point is priceless in terms of how we understand the environmental justice impact of CEJA. Blacks in Green has been born at the intersection of environment, economy, and equity. And we are the authors of the 8 principles of green village building, the 7th principle of which is each village fosters lifelong learning through hubs, which are epicenters for green training, development, and lifestyle transformation. And so what that means in the context of CEJA is that when the opportunity to expand the legislation from the Future Energy Jobs Act to support an investment, a significant investment in hubs, you know, of course, this was an idea we thought whose time had definitely come. So in the Clean Energy Jobs Act, and of course, all hubs are going to look different, but the Clean Energy Jobs Act provides $26 million per year to create a network of workforce development hubs. And these are going to provide direct support from community education to workforce training to career placement. And these are for members of our, of course, we know, economically disadvantaged communities. And the workforce programs that will be administered through these hubs are going to be in 16 locations statewide. There's a contractor incubator program, $21 million a year to provide disadvantaged contractors and entrepreneurs with access to capital, including support for obtaining insurance, assistance in registering to become vendors to state incentive programs, connections with firms that are hiring contractors. That's a supply chain that we've been talking about, and other services. So we recognize that when we talk about economy, and it's a word that's bandied about, but it really means that network of jobs. Who are the largest employers of Black people? Black people. The opportunity for the state of Illinois and our utility partners to invest in the expansion of contractors is fundamental. We believe that Black companies providing services to Black communities it seems like common sense, but it is not the norm. And it is a new norm being ushered in by CEJA through reforms and improvements over the Future Energy Jobs Act. We're, in addition to those provisions I just mentioned, the Illinois Solar for All program, that budget is expanded from $30 million to $50 million per year to dramatically increase solar projects in our environmental justice communities. Now, what does this mean? This means in the neighborhood where this hub is located, in Woodlawn, 64th and Cottage, that we have a pilot community of West Woodlawn that we're pouring into. We have thousands of households that are now positioned to be able to receive no-cost solar rooftop installations for 1 and 2 family residences. And we're working at this very hub and at hubs that we're going to be supporting to come online just like it around the city and around the state. We're working to be in direct communication with our communities about these benefits. Neighbors can come, get their green on, and literally walk out with a program that's just like dollars in the bank. There is clarified language about vendors, that the requirement for hiring is strengthened. It's clarified. That's where the rubber meets the road. And similarly with the IPA, to ensure that small and emerging contractors can participate as vendors in the program. This is what creates an economy. So between equitable workforce business development, energy access and solar for all, electric transportation, there are additional provisions for the electrification of vehicles that are accessible to the Black community, Black and brown communities, environmental justice communities, and the rental of automobiles that are electrified within our communities. These are all provisions in CEJA that we fought for very hard and are proud to share with our community through a series of listen, lead, share conversations that, again, is funded through the provisions of CEJA, FEJA and CEJA. I want to say, and I'm not sure about my time here, but I want to say that this hub exists because of the Future Energy Jobs Act. We've put 15 men through the solar installation training program that has been featured. We've been able to hire 4 of them. 2 of them have gone on to be hired by Sunrun, one of America's leading solar installer companies. This is where the rubber meets the road. We've got 13 years in as Blacks in Green, but it was a breakthrough in funding through the ComEd Energy Efficiency Innovation Program, funded through this legislation that made the difference between us being able to open this headquarters, hire these people, and provide this service to our community. This is where the rubber meets the road, and we're glad to stand with Ann Williams and Sarah Feigenholtz and our other allies, the Black Legislative Caucus, in advancing CEJA to passage as well. Thank you.
Great. Thank you as always, Naomi. Every time you speak, I learn something new. So appreciate you sharing today and also your ongoing commitment to energy development in Illinois. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Yoni Pizer to facilitate some Q&A, and we'll be questions as they arise.
Okay, we've got some great questions in the chat, and we're going to do our best to get through as many as possible. Again, if we don't get to your question, we will answer it afterwards. Okay, Steve asks a bunch of questions, and I'm going to condense them into a couple questions. First of all, what limits, controls will be put on Exelon, and how can we avoid efforts on the part of the utilities and the energy markets to limit or sabotage possibly the efforts trying to be made with CEJA? Who would like to take that one? Anyone can just jump in.
Yeah, that's I'll take a first stab at it as the token utility consumer advocate on the panel. These are all good questions, and of course, it's complicated whenever you're trying to fight for some legislation that is going to affect the bottom lines of energy generators and energy distributors like the utilities. I will say that the reason why CUB is behind CEJA is because there are caps on how much the programs can impact consumer bills. And then that piece that I mentioned about changing the way that the state procures its peak energy generation is a huge piece of it. The way that, it's hard to put this briefly, but basically the way that our current grid operator makes sure that we have enough electricity to meet our needs when we're all running our air conditioning all at once is rigged in favor of fossil fuel power generators. We're already, Illinois consumers are already overpaying for our electric supply as a result of this rigging, so to speak. And recent decisions on the federal level threaten this to become even worse, to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars in rate impacts on consumers per year. So built into CEJA is a provision that would basically take that responsibility for procuring peak energy capacity away from the grid operator and giving it to the state. So that the state has more control over the energy generation mix. So even that alone helps protect us from nefarious power generators to a great extent. But it's always going to be a process. Obviously, Exelon and ComEd and Ameren are very powerful companies, and they have a lot of pull in Springfield. And at the end of the day, we're going to have to engage with them, I believe, to make sure that we come to some kind of legislation that can actually pass. And I'll tell you already that, not to get ahead of ourselves, but we're already talking about what comes after CEJA. So when I first started working at CUB, I'm like, okay, cool, we're going to pass a bill, we're going to fix everything, and then CUB can go out of business, right? No, that's not really how it works. Energy policy is a process, and I didn't start this presentation with it, but usually when I present on CEJA, so I was trying to keep to time, which I'm not doing now, but I usually start my presentations with a long timeline showing the evolution of energy policy in the state of Illinois over time, and it's going to continue. So, you know, we're not going to get absolutely everything that we want for our utopian dream vision in CEJA, right? But we can make really significant progress and be ready to come back once we've gotten past this for the next go around.
Great answer. Did any of the other panelists want to chime in? Okay. Kara asks, let's see, there is a history of overconsumption, and is there any part of CEJA which will promote conservation on the part of consumers? And is there any effort to deal with some of the unintended environmental consequences? And she brought up specifically, like, harm to bats by wind turbines.
I can
Yeah,
probably
you want
jump
to
in
take
on
that?
this one. Yeah.
Great.
So specifically addressing the second part of the question first, there is a really, really exciting provision within CEJA that makes it unique, that calls for these community planning or community plans to be developed by local municipalities. This provision and this program essentially will allow for community to design and allocate resources to specific locations that can develop renewable energy and make sure that they're doing that in a locally sensitive way. Finding the places in their community and doing their own community energy planning to make sure that they're not going to be disproportionately impacting one person or one group of people or a specific species. This is taken into account within the bill to make sure that each area is going to be doing their own planning to make sure that they have the right precautions put in place. And then the first question, speaking about the personal contribution to some of these environmental crises that we're facing, it is, I think, of the opinion, I think I can speak for the Clean Jobs Coalition when I say this, that performing larger structural reforms is the more impactful way for us to make the biggest difference possible. When we're talking about the procurement of wholesale energy, this is, a huge undertaking that can cause us to reduce our emissions by, 10, 20, 30%. I mean, these are really, really big, ambitious goals that we can achieve through legislation. The personal reductions that people can make in their own lives are important, but CEJA's perspective is really looking at the systems that we have in place about how our energy is procured and how we're using it on our grid and energy efficiency. So we take a little bit of a different approach.
Thank you. Great question. Another good question.
Can I just add, sorry, I just want to add another thing also. I mean, when we're talking about energy efficiency programs, when we talk about how CEJA expands energy efficiency, we're talking about creating better incentives for consumers to reduce energy usage. And something that we didn't really even get to was about programs that encourage people to reduce peak energy load. We keep talking about peak. A lot of what drives up fossil fuel use is not being cognizant of when we're using electricity. And so CEJA also helps develop programs that give people further incentives to, use less at peak times. If you have an electric vehicle, plug it in overnight when there's less need to add new generation, for example. So it does address kind of individual measures people can take as well.
That's true. Thanks for the clarification. Great.
Jerry and Jonathan have asked some political questions, which I'm going to try to condense. So Jerry says, how much additional co-sponsor support is needed to ensure that CEJA is passed in the fall? Because it appears with the co-sponsors that the numbers are close. And then Jonathan also asks, what is CEJA's greatest criticism and how can we fight against it? And then will there be another rally in Springfield before the legislation comes up? So some political questions. Anybody?
I guess I'd say I hope there's a rally. What I wouldn't give for a CEJA rally right now. I love the energy that brings. I'd rally really for anything right now. But I think the answer, the co-sponsors question is the co-sponsors for CEJA are really outstanding. We have members from all parts of the state. We have members from all demographics and all types of communities, which is important to show a wide breadth of support. But, sponsorships don't pass a bill. You still have to take that vote. So at the end of the day, it's great to get a sponsor on a bill. It shows some ownership and interest and investment in a particular bill. But at the end of the day, continued outreach to your members of the House and Senate is critical. I would suggest, if possible, getting to know your state representative. We're pretty accessible. We have small staffs. and be the squeaky wheel that calls and checks in with your state rep or state senator and ask them where they are in clean energy policy. Have they been working on CEJA? What areas can you be helpful to them on? Can you get a group of people together to talk to them about it virtually, if not in person? So I think getting that sponsorship on there is important, but there's other work and advocacy that you can do to even further ramp up your advocacy. I don't know if anyone wants to add anything to that.
Sounds good.
Do you mind if I just
please go ahead, David?
So regarding the criticism that some people throw at the Illinois Clean Jobs Coalition or at CEJA, there is a false conception or a misrepresentation that the industry is building CEJA to be something for themselves. But the best way to fight back against any narrative like that is to remember that the listen, lead, share sessions are the foundation for this bill. We went to every single Senate district to provide an equal opportunity for folks to provide their own feedback on what they wanted their clean energy future to look like. That is why CEJA was created, and that is the foundation of the entire bill. And the folks that are creating it every single day and working to edit it and advocate for it are community members, and that's just an important way to fight back against that narrative.
Great point, Gavin. Thank you for that. Catherine asks, the city of Chicago and the Resurrection Project have pledged to build 1,000 homes on the south side and 1,000 homes on the west side. Will CEJA pledge to work with the Resurrection Project to facilitate these homes to be solar powered, funded by the state?
Well, I will say this, that those of us who fought for those provisions takes a lot of time and energy and moxie to lean into the way things work around here and to make change. So we're not trying to sit back and coast through some words on a page. We absolutely pledge to work with you to make sure that those rooftop installations become manifest. The idea that there is a no-cost opportunity for 1 and 2 flat households to reduce, not only reduce their energy usage, increase their comfort, and not only increase their comfort, but also the value of their homes, that we're going to see that happen. And the reason that we pushed for more money to be included in the Solar for All program in CEJA over FEJA is because we know that right now we're getting a really slow start, but we've got a lot of households that we've got to solarize. So we're with you. Be in touch with me directly at Blacks and Green if you want a greater inside track on how to make that happen for yourselves. We're with you.
Great. And this will be the last question. With transportation electrification, will this push also include public transportation? For example, electrifying existing rail lines, buying electric bus fleets, and other green transportation such as cycleways and whatnot. Anyone?
I can take a quick stab at this one. There are really, really exciting transportation initiatives that are built into CEJA. One of the really exciting programs is this last mile electrified vehicle program. The idea of having these shuttle services for last mile transit users using only electric vehicles to decrease the amount of emissions from vehicles in disenfranchised and environmental justice communities. There's also specific provisions on fleet electrification, and a lot of that language is in the bill, and I'd be happy to follow up with whoever asked that question to point out the specific provisions. But yes, that is all in there, and I'd like to note that there is many, many millions of dollars sitting on the table right now from the Volkswagen settlement that can be utilized to do this exact same thing, and we hope that happens as well.
Great, thank you so much, Gavin. That question was from Ethan, by the way. That wraps up the Q&A. Ann, do you want to take it over from here?
Yes, I guess I'm not muted. Well, thank you so much to the panelists, Gavin, Sarah, Naomi. You guys were amazing today. Thank you to all those who attended for your interest and engagement. And I think if you should have further questions, comments, questions on the bill or otherwise, feel free to reach out to us. I'm not sure if there's a way to get our contact information to you through this chat box right now, but if not, we're easy to find. But I want to just thank everyone on the call and the panelists again, not just for being here today, but for your nonstop commitment to all Illinois communities. And it's that commitment that's going to really take us over the finish line. Just to wrap up, I just wanted to mention that overall, this fight looks a little bit different than it has in the past. Traditionally, as someone here referenced, utilities kind of ran the conversation over the years about energy, and they set the energy policy. Over time, the environmental community worked hard to get in the room, maybe get a seat at the table, but we've seen that really evolve over the past few years. And now we're really setting the table for this conversation. And that's in large part because of the efforts of organizations that are represented here, the important issues that we're facing in terms of disparities between communities that can no longer be ignored, and just the advocacy and energy out there in the communities. So because of that, I think we will have a very environmentally driven, equity driven, comprehensive piece of legislation this fall. And I look forward to working with you all to make that happen. Thank you.
And Senator Sarah, you want to bring us home?
Not okay. Well, there's not a whole lot that hasn't been said. I think that this has been like a really deep dive that a lot of us need to we needed to hear again. And having such a great turnout is testament to what you just said, Representative Williams, about the diversity and the renewed interest that this issue has brought to the fore. You know, I think we're all very focused on health and the health of our environment and getting outside, having great parks, having a thriving planet, having clean water. And so we have to continue to work together so that we can reach all of these goals. And I look very, very forward to getting out of these sort of dark days and into a better time with a palette ahead of us that is bright for the future. So thank you, Sarah, Gavin, Naomi, Yoni, and Ann for this, and everybody who participated, and we will see you soon.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye now.